It's my pleasure to tell you something about the history and the growth of Shandon United Methodist Church. It was back in 1909 that the Shandon area began to develop, and the streetcar came all the way out to Maple Street. And so a group of people in the community, some of whom were employees at Epworth Children's Home, some were just neighbors in the community, got together and they said, we need a church in our community. And so this group of people got together and they started working to form a church in the Shandon area. And Shandon United Methodist Church became that church. And it was in 1909 that the group got together, and at first they worshiped in different areas around town, around in the community. In fact, at one of the schools in the area. And then they bought a piece of property and they built a church. And would you believe that after it had been built around 1909 or 1910, while a fire struck the church and the church was demolished practically for all purposes, and just a few things like maybe the piano and the Sunday school room at the back of the church was completely destroyed. Well, to show you the spirit of the people who were the early founding fathers of the church, nothing seemed to disturb them at all. They got right together, they made plans, they bought another piece of property on the corner of Maple and Preston Streets, and they began the construction of another church in a year after the fire had burned the first church. Now, to me, that shows a spirit indeed. They were in the new church that now stands at the corner of Preston and Maple Street. One day, they built a wooden structure, a Sunday school room. The building was divided into two parts, one for children and one for adults. And so the church started growing, and the community was growing. The area on out Maple Street and on out Divine Street started, the residence area became bigger and bigger, and so it became evident that they didn't have space there where they were, and that we needed to get another church that would adequately take care of the needs of the people. And so they started looking around for property. And so they decided that they would look for other space, and the property belonging to the school board on 3215 Divine Street became available. And so everybody said, well, let's look at that and see what it's like. Would you believe that by 1942, that the church at that point was debt-free? We had bought the property over on 3215 Divine, and it had been paid for, and all the renovations had been paid for. And so then 3 years later, the church sold the Heathwood property for $45,000 and purchased the property that we now have here at Divine and Adja. And ground was broken on April the 13th, 1948, and the structure was completed by September 1949. And there were we have a picture in the archives that everybody loves, and that's the walkover that we had after the Sunday school part of the first part of construction of this building was completed about 4 months before the sanctuary. We had the walkover from the 3215 property, and there were 538 people in the walkover. And the picture that we have in the archives showed Mr. Mason, who was pastor at that particular time. He was leading the procession.